Hi, I'm Carson, and I'm obsessed with Halloween Horror Nights. I know that's not really a shocking declaration in the year 2021. Yeah, there are loads of Halloween Horror Nights fans out there. It's wonderful that the event has grown so much over the years that new fans have come on board and joined our little family, as it were. Today I wanted to share a little bit about why I love this event as much as I do. Chances are if you're watching this video, you're also a huge Halloween Horror Nights fan or have probably gone at least 1 or 2 times, enough to be on the internet watching some random stranger in her kitchen rant about why she loves this event so much. And if you've been, then chances are that you know how special this event can be. And today I wanted to talk about what this event means to me specifically. I guess we should go back, way back into childhood here a little bit. When I was really little, I wasn't super into very scary things. In fact, the story, The Three Billy Goats Gruff, I did not like that. I remember specifically being scared of the episode of Barney where they dressed up and acted it out. I would never watch it because I was scared of the troll under the bridge. I was also scared of the troll in the Norway ride at Epcot. Maybe I just had a fear of trolls, but I was scared of little things like that. But I guess at some point in time, something must have shifted, because then I turned into that weird kid in elementary school. Not weird like an outcast or anything, but I was that kid that was at school talking about ghost stories and all of like the creepy, spooky things that I was just one day suddenly really into. In fact, I remember bringing in this little illustrated small book that I had gotten after I went on my very first ghost tour down in St. Augustine, Florida. I was deep into the paranormal, and a lot of that did have to do with some of my personal experiences. Perhaps I ought to talk about that one day, because I do have some interesting paranormal experiences that I could share. But I think that was kind of what led me down that trail of getting into all things Halloween. And also during my formative years, from the time I was a little child, my family always celebrated Halloween. We would sit down, still to this day, for 20-something years now, have sat down and watched a Disney, I used to have the VHS, we wore it out so much that now we have to look up the shorts on YouTube. The Halloween Haunts is what it was called. Pluto's Judgment Day, which I don't know like if anybody else out there has seen that, but Pluto has killed before, and it's very important that somebody else knows that. But it was Pluto's Judgment Day, Lonesome Ghosts, where Mickey, Donald, and Goofy go into this creepy old house and these ghosts play tricks on them. And then the fun Trick or Treat, where the Huey, Dewey, and Louie, the little ducks, they go to Donald's house. Donald is mean, and Witch Hazel exacts for revenge for them. 3 wonderful classics. There was a collection of those 3 on a VHS. We watched that every year in October when I was a kid, and we also watched the Disney's version of Legend of Sleepy Hollow. We still do that tradition to this day. I am pushing 30, and I will never be too old to sit down and watch those movies. It's probably my favorite tradition of my family that we have. I can also remember pretty much every Halloween costume I ever had growing up. I was always super into the holiday. I loved going around the neighborhood and trick-or-treating. I just really loved Halloween. I remember my dad carving our first pumpkin when I was a baby. I remember we still have this old light-up jack-o'-lantern. We call him Jack. I know, very creative, right? But we have him out every single year. Like, the Halloween was big in our house. The whole holiday was very, very present. In fact, when I look around sitting here right now, I can count no less than 10 pumpkins just from where I'm sitting, and those don't even include the ones on my shirt. So combine that with my interest in the supernatural, the paranormal, and that was just the perfect combination to make me that kind of kid that was really into all things spooky. I was also that kid that was always into all things theater. My mother played the Phantom of the Opera original soundtrack for me at an impressionable age, and I always like to tell people that's what's wrong with me. I was introduced to Phantom way too young, came away with all the wrong messages at first. It's still my favorite musical of all time, but that was what sent me down the rabbit hole into theater. So my love of spooky and my love of theater kind of meshed together to make me this person that just couldn't really contain talking about their interests. And I'm sure that's a relatable thing. I'm also not the type of person that really just kind of like casually enjoys things. I guess I do kind of casually enjoy some things if I want something like mindless, but if I am into something, then I'm like really into that thing. That's why I sit here in my kitchen talking to my camera all alone like an idiot. But I don't, very rarely do I just kind of engage in something like, yeah, it's okay. And when you are that personality type, perhaps some of you out there can relate to this. Sometimes it is hard to connect with people about your interests, especially if it's something that's kind of polarizing or really niche or just something that maybe not a broad audience is into. And I don't mean to come off as like pretentious. I'm not trying to sound like hipster, like, oh, you would have never heard of that. I purely just mean that in the sense of like, if you are in social groups and there are people that don't like engage with what you like, then that can be a little bit hard to connect when you have such a passion for it. And you also maybe don't want to be that person that's like spilling your guts out to somebody that really doesn't care about whatever it is you're talking about. I have been that person many times. Sometimes I literally just cannot stop my mouth when I'm too excited, and I can see in someone's eyes, or at least I perceive that they don't necessarily care about what I'm talking about. So that's hard. If any of you have ever experienced that, then you know that that is hard. Fortunately, I'm really, really lucky. I have a very wonderful and accepting family. I surrounded myself with friends that were of similar minds, but I was always kind of the more like obsessive one of the group. It kind of became an ongoing joke that my friends could usually pinpoint the exact thing, character, musical, show, movie, whatever that I would become like obsessed with, and they just accepted it. It like, you know, it was all in good fun that they would poke fun at me, but they never like shunned me or judged me for that. But in the back of my mind still, it was really hard. It was hard to feel like I wasn't understood when it came to my interests. It was hard to feel like I didn't really have a place that was really where I belonged for all of my interests. I felt like such a weirdo. I was never an outcast. I was never super popular or anything. I didn't care to be. I had my friend group, but I still sometimes would think like, okay, you got to tone it down. Some people don't care about the things you care about as much as you do. You got to get it under control. And then one day in 2009, something happened. I was talking to my friends and the subject of going to Halloween Horror Nights came up. I had never been. I had only just recently gotten into the local haunt scene. I had been to a few local haunts around, really liked it. So when the chance came to go down to Universal Studios, which was a theme park that I really loved, of course I jumped at the chance. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, I've been in haunted houses. It's probably going to be some tarps and we'll be outside and they'll just have some tents set up. But it's fun. We'll still get to go to Universal. We'll go in some haunted houses. Maybe we'll get to ride some rides too. I had no clue. I had no idea what I was stepping into. And I have talked at length here before about my first year of Halloween Horror Nights. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to sum it up and basically say my life was changed from that day forth. My first house I ever went through was Saw, and that was a really crappy run through, even though at the time it seemed fun to me. But I remember the moment that everything changed was when I stepped foot into Frankenstein Creation of the Damned. I saw that facade, I saw the sets and everything going on in that house. And the world as I knew it would just never be the same again. The level of detail, everything that went into these houses, the sets, the costumes, the lighting, the intensity of the actors was unlike anything I had ever expected. It felt like, as Universal likes to tout, like walking into a movie. And it had just that right amount of theater involved in it. It's all theater, really. Like, so much of it is everything that I went to school to study, and it just hit me like a truck. I was so impressed and just completely floored at what I was seeing. And from there on out, it became a tradition. I knew that I could never, ever miss a year of this event. I had to go. I had to see what they were going to do. I needed to know the sets. I remember sitting in my friend's childhood home, and there were 2 computers in her house. We sat in separate rooms waiting for the website drop one of the years, and also like playing around on all of the Horror Nights forums and stuff in separate rooms. We were hanging out together that day, but we both wanted to look at the computer so badly. I think it was my idea in the first place that we were actually sitting separately scrolling through the same websites. Like, that's how deeply into it I would be online all year long, still am, reading all of the rumors and all of the speculation and everything. Staying up till midnight back when the websites used to drop at midnight. I remember being in my college dorm when the one for 2011, year 21 dropped, and just like trying to freak out quietly so I didn't wake up my roommate. And eventually going from one night turned into going to 2 nights and to going to multiple weekends, and then trying to go as much as I possibly could go to this event. It became a lifestyle. Now, this probably sounds familiar to a lot of your experiences out there, how you might have gotten into the event. What keeps me going, though, is a combination of a lot of different things. Of course, I love seeing all the art and all of the theater and the heart and soul that goes into these haunted houses, but Horror Nights has become kind of like another member of my family. That family member that you don't get to see all the time, but when you do, you know it's just going to be like a wonderful experience. I have always been the type of person that has liked having something to look forward to. I used to be like super into Disney for a while, and I would actually write countdowns on my calendars to how many days were left, like well into the double and triple digits, just to like keep myself looking forward to something. It was like that with Horror Nights as well. I'd have countdowns. In fact, my Facebook memories like to show me around this time of year that I'm filming this, how all of my posts, like I can make it 6 more days. If I make it 6 more days, then I'll be at Halloween Horror Nights. Like I've always been that kind of like focused on looking forward to what's coming sort of person, while also still being that person that's like living in my memories, like thinking about the past, like really just like reminiscing about old Halloween Horror Nights years. So somehow I'm both. I'm never really like in the now. I'm more forward or backward, trying to be better about being in the now though. And on that same note of Horror Nights feeling like a wonderful family member, I also have a real attachment to the event because of my interpersonal relationships and how they have grown and evolved at this event as well. I would go to the event for many years with my same friend group. Eventually that group grew as we, you know, would spread the good word, as it were, and try to convert people to our Halloween Horror Nights fandom. And I also have taken several family members, which I have talked about before. I've taken a few cousins down here for the first time, and of course my mom now goes every year with me. I will never forget her going into her very first house. Her first house was Alien vs. Predator, which wasn't even one of my favorites this year, but now it's like a fond memory. It's one of the houses I do love because she actually went and enjoyed it enough to where she goes back with me every year, and that's fun to have that special relationship with her as well. I feel like relationships have changed because of this event. Like I think having a tradition to participate in with people strengthens your bond, having those shared experiences, having that special place where you all can meet up together. Because for a while, of course, when I was in college, all of my friends didn't live together and we couldn't see each other all the time, but I remember the excitement of driving to all meet at the hotel where we were all staying for, I remember in 2010, we all kind of tried to meet at the same time at the hotel, get ready together, get excited. And it was nice to have that to look forward to, kind of like a reunion space. And just a few years ago, back in 2018, the 2019, the last normal year that we had for Horror Nights before COVID, getting together with some of that group again. And it felt kind of like a reunion tour, as it were, of getting to go to Horror Nights. And I'm not alone in that, I know too. I see all over the internet people meeting up with their friends, people they've met online, meeting in person for the very first time. I'm such a socially awkward person. I would love to meet and interact with some of the other fans out there, but I'm like on the fringes of the Horror Nights community. I'm just out here in my kitchen talking to like nobody, I'm sure. But I see y'all out there and it's like, I want to be friends too, but I'm so like bad at initiating anything, and maybe I never will, but still, like, you know, I have talked to people online. I do have my Tumblr blog and all of that where I have talked a little bit to some people, and it's nice to like have something to bond over. Like it's easier to make friends when you have something that you both like. But I digress. It's like that for a lot of people. It's like their sacred friend space, and I'm jealous of everyone that lives in Orlando that can just go meet up with their friends in whatever weeknight or whatever and go hit a few houses together. I wish I lived that close to be able to do that. But it's really heartwarming to see that this is a place for people like me, that were the weird kid that was too loud about their interests or too into all the spooky things, and to the point where like maybe that would make them a little weird to some people. It feels like such a judgment-free zone. It feels like such an accepting community and accepting place. Like, we're all here for the thing that we love, and that's comforting to me. That to me feels like home. Every year that I walk through the gates, I feel like I'm home. Like, this is the place. From being that kid that no one wanted to listen to talking about ghost stories, or being that person that at my old job, like talking about Halloween basically equated you with being a Satan worshiper, to have a place like Horror Nights where that is accepted and your interests are valid really makes me feel really happy. And there is that sense of community, and maybe that sounds like super sappy, maybe this just sounds like really lame, but the times that I have just like randomly talked to strangers in line, or you know, you have those little moments with people you have never met before at the event, it's really awesome. Like, we're all here for something that we enjoy. And you know, of course you get the outliers, like the crazy drunks that want to ruin it for everybody, but the people that are there to like celebrate what this event is about are some of like just the nicest, chillest people ever. And to be able to bond like with strangers you'll probably never see again, and have a laugh and go through the house, and you know, I always love those moments where it's like the person behind you gets scared and accidentally grabs you, and you all come out laughing and apologize and stuff. It's like, no, it was okay, it was fun. Like, having those moments where it feels like we're all coming together, that's really awesome. I really love that. As awesome as Horror Nights is in that way, I have always kind of said that the way I feel about just Universal in general is a lot different than the way I feel about other theme parks. Like I said before, I went through a serious Disney phase, and I don't dislike Walt Disney World. I'm not super thrilled with a lot that I've seen going on lately. I haven't actually been to Disney in 2 or 3 years at this point, which is really upsetting. But I used to be more of a Disney girl, and I liked the escapism of Disney. Like, you check your problems at the door and you're in the most magical place on earth, or the happiest place on earth. And I would always joke that then if Disney was the happiest place on earth, then Universal must be the unhappiest place on earth, or whatever. And I didn't mean that in a derogatory sense, but it is true. At Disney, I felt like, oh, the real world is gone. All of my problems are gone. Everything is happy and sunshine and rainbows. But I don't feel that same way at Universal. Universal feels like the park for me more now that I'm an adult. Like, it's still me in there with all of, you know, whatever I have going on with me. But that sense of being home makes whatever's going on in my real life seem a little more easy to deal with. I've had wonderful nights at Universal, at Horror Nights specifically. I have had really crappy nights at Universal and at Horror Nights specifically. I have had really just crappy stuff happen, and that hasn't tainted my view of the event. In fact, it kind of, in a weird way, makes it a little bit easier to deal with the real world and all of my problems. Like, if I'm in that place that feels like home, that feels like comfort to me, then everything else maybe doesn't seem so bad. And I feel like I've been able to mentally work through whatever's been going on a little bit better at Universal. Maybe that sounds crazy, but I feel like I guess it's still escapism in that way Disney is, but in a more like, okay, I need to work through this, and I need to work through this in a place where I feel comfortable. I think about time periods that I've gone to the event and things that were happening in my life around that time, and how that kind of colored the way I read a certain house, or how I reacted to a certain line in the Bill and Ted show. And it really is interesting to like follow that trail of, this is how the event helped me. Because I've had some really, you know, I've had crappy times, haven't we all? Isn't that just a human experience? But for whatever reason, it feels like as long as I have Horror Nights, like maybe the bad stuff just isn't as bad. To have that place of comfort really just means the world to me. Now that it is my 12th year of attending this event, I think of it as just one of those things in my life that is just totally ingrained. It's not even a strange, out of the ordinary thing. It's just, it's September, it's October. It's time for me to go home again. Horror Nights isn't just an event, it's an entity of its own. It is an extension of who I am. I pour so much of my heart and my soul into talking about this and experiencing this. And it feels like, I feel like after COVID, after I didn't get to go last year, I didn't even get to go to the HHN Light or the Diet HHN. I wasn't able to make it down there last year. And I knew all of this. I realized how significant this event was to me before COVID, but after, it has just really amplified my thoughts and feelings about it, which is why I sat down to make this video. It felt like the right decision. Like, I was comforted by the fact that they did cancel last year. As upset as I was, I knew it was the right move. Preparing to go this year was the first time it has felt like a totally different experience. In fact, it didn't feel like it was really happening when I got in the car to leave. It didn't feel like it was really happening when I checked into Cabana Bay. It didn't feel real until we were standing in the little like resort guest entrance over by the Despicable Me ride, and I saw the actors come out to get ready to do the opening ceremonies. That's when it hit me that it was really happening, and I lost it. Like, I started crying. I wasn't upset, I was crying tears of joy. I cried through the majority of The Bride of Frankenstein Lives the first time, which, looking back at it now, like the wave of emotion that hit me going through that house, my first house of this year, it reminded me of the fact that the first house I was really truly wowed by at the event was the Frankenstein creation of the damned house. It was like everything had come full circle. Not having this event for a full year was hard, and then it was happening again. This whole last week, because it has been a week since I've been to the event, the 2021 event this year, this whole week, and I've even said to people, it said, I finally feel like myself again. As crazy as that is, like, of course I haven't been just like wandering around in depression because Horror Nights hasn't been here for a full year, but going back, it feels like I'm myself again. Something was missing, and it is such a huge part of me that it did make a difference that maybe I didn't even notice at the time, but now look, I notice it now, because now I feel like this is me. I feel happy. I feel that sense of excitement, the nostalgia already for memories that are just a week old. Like, it's all hitting me that this is real, and Horror Nights is back. So maybe this all sounds like the ramblings of an insane person. It probably does, but if there is anybody out there that relates, then maybe some of this does make sense to you. Horror Nights is not just an event. It is a community. It is an experience. It is a place where it's okay to be a little out there, a little weird. It's okay to like the spooky things. It's okay to be the person that loved doing stage makeup class because we got to do gore and wounds. It's okay to like ghost stories and the paranormal and being scared sometimes. It's okay to find fun in all of that. So that's what Horror Nights means to me. And we're back, and hopefully we're gonna stay back for a long time, because I don't know about you guys, but this event, this 30th anniversary, feels like a homecoming of sorts, and I'm really glad that maybe we can get back into the swing of things.